Hey everyone, hope you've been well. Sorry it's been a while, just haven't had much time to make a video, but I have been here tinkering away. Made some really good progress that I can't wait to share. Um, I'll put chapters in the video so you can skip ahead and look at bits that you want to check out. But yeah, let's get started. So probably one of the bigger pieces of news is I've migrated everything over to Godot 4. I've been keeping up to date with the latest alphas, and yeah, everything's working fine. The migration wasn't too bad, um, and it seems to have improved a couple of things. So draw calls are definitely much better than they were on Godot 3, and there are a few nice improvements to how the editor plugin works. I used to have to have the terrain node selected to get this menu to come up, but now it's now I just show it all the time, and it passes through my cursor position constantly. So that's nice. It's means I can jump back and forth pretty easily. Besides that, yeah, it was pretty uneventful. Just nice performance improvements, and yeah, it's pretty same old, same old. I had quite a big breakthrough with the terrain recently. Well, I say breakthrough, but it's nothing groundbreaking. It's I'm making use of the built-in collision. You might remember previously I had written all this code for like custom ray casting to the terrain and all this stuff just because I tried to generate collision for the terrain, but it was really slow. But I revisited that recently, and the old way I was doing it was definitely slow, but the new way that I'm doing it is much faster. Basically, what I used to do was I would generate the mesh, and then I would get the faces from the mesh to use in the collision shape. But it must be like getting it from the GPU or something because it was super slow. Now what I do is I manually generate the faces just how I'm generating the mesh. And then I pass those faces to the collision shape when I generate it. So I set the faces here, and it's actually really quick. So what this means is I can get rid of all my custom ray casting stuff, and a lot of my movement code had the custom ray cast to detect the terrain, and just replace it all with the physics engine, which is great. It also means things like the camera now collides with the terrain, a little bit janky. Also, yeah, the mouse can detect when it's getting occluded by the terrain, so I can't select behind, but I can select in front. So yeah, a lot of benefits to doing it this way, and it's very quick and very performant. I was worried about the physics with a lot of players moving around would perhaps not be great, but I did a quick test just with some very basic, just with a bunch of balls rolling around, and I think it was like 500 here. And so yeah, it's if people are just moving, still get a solid 100 FPS with lots of movement on the terrain. So I'm not too concerned about performance, and the benefits definitely are worth it. So that was a really good change. I've also updated the dynamic node system to support other node types. Before it only used to support models, but now it also supports lights and sounds, and I can add support for any sort of node. So pretty much how it works is when you are adding a node to the world, it doesn't add the node directly. It adds a dynamic node with this dynamic data. And then the dynamic node is responsible for loading and unloading, very similar to how it was with the models. Loading, unloading it's the child nodes. So for a light dynamic node, it loads an OmniLight. For a model, a node 3D, and for a sound, it would be, I guess, a sound node. I haven't added that yet. But yeah, and the cool thing is, so if I am in here and I select the light node, and I adjust anything here, it's going to get picked up by this script when this set method gets called. Whenever I change a property on this child node, this set method gets called, which updates the data that's in the parent. And then this data is then saved against the map. So it actually all worked out really well. I'm quite happy with that. There used to be a dedicated player node here, but a lot of the movement code was shared between basically any other entity that needed to move, so other NPCs, players, vehicles. So I extracted that out to a separate scene, kept a lot of generic stuff that would be needed per entity, moving entity, and I updated it to handle both player control movement, so where it takes the input and directly moves the player, or server control movement, so when the server sends updates to like, oh, this player's moving forward, or it applies the same direction, and then the physics process that runs is exactly the same, whether it's player controlled or server controlled. As a part of that, I also moved the camera out of the player scene to be a totally separate entity that can be moved around and controlled by the server. So say if the player mind controls another player, the server can tell the client as a part of the control to take control of the other player, which would send my movement to take control of them. My commands would be for them. The camera can also move over there and start following that player. And then when mind control finishes, the camera can be moved back and control return to the player. So that was really good. Nice separation. It's like exactly how it was meant to be. So I've been really wanting to get the spell system working, but I had a huge issue with the proper order to do things in. So it's like I could have the client send a spell, but then the server doesn't know about the spells. So then the server needs to have the spells, and then the client doesn't know about the spells. So then I have to have some way for the server to tell the client and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, I think I've got it now. I'll just run you through what I have so far. So on the server, there's a table, or there'll be multiple tables about the spells and their effects and modifiers, all that kind of stuff. Some of that data is going to get dumped and exported, and then it's going to be imported into the client. So currently I just have this dump of the data from the DB. So I've got 3 spells. When the player logs in, one of the first few packets that is sent is a list of all the spells that the player knows, and the mapping. So what spell appears on what button in the UI. So during loading, it's static now, but this will be the action bar mapping. So on button 1, we've got spell 1. On button 2, there's nothing. Button 3, spell 1 again, and then spell ID 2, spell ID 3, and then nothing for the rest. So in the UI, it looks like this. So you got spell 1, nothing, spell 2, 3, and 4. Or 1, 2, and 3. So it's very close. This is all a little bit static still, but once it's dynamic, it'll let me, move spells around. And when I'm casting, I'll know, like, yeah, my player actually has this spell and the server will accept it. And yeah, so I just need to add the last part, which is going to be telling the server that I'm casting a spell, and then when the server has cast it, it's going to update everybody around to say, okay, this person's cast a spell, play that animation, and then further down the road it'll be, okay, well, now that spell has been cast, let's go through and apply damage or healing to the various affected entities. So it's the start of a lot of basically gameplay, which is something I've been struggling to get to for a while. A lot of nice terrain and all this kind of stuff, but I just want to get some gameplay in. So hopefully this is the start of it. just kind of related to spells and that kind of thing, and the UI. I believe it was Godot 4 added these decal nodes for 3D. So basically it lets you project the texture onto a model. So here I'm just projecting this circle texture onto the terrain when I select these entities and even myself, which was quite nice. That was something I was going to struggle with. Definitely don't think I could do that in Godot 3 very easily, at least. Very similar thing is I can display it AoE decal. So, if I'd selected this spell and now it's like, okay, put it there, click there, and then I would send to the server, cast this spell at this location, wherever I'm got the cursor. So yeah, that was just a nice thing that I believe was added in Godot 4, or if it was there before, I didn't know about it. But yeah, it makes things a lot easier. Obviously, next for me is just to finish up the spell system. So the front end work is definitely nearly done, but there's a lot more work to happen on the server side to handle, what happens when a spell cast is successful or if a spell cast fails and all that kind of stuff. I'm pretty happy with the terrain is at the moment. There's obviously still stuff to do, but I'll just leave that for now and focus on getting the spells working. But yeah, don't forget, I do have a Discord, so if you've got any questions, you want me to clarify something or go deeper into something, come into the Discord and ask away. I'm always happy to answer questions. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video.